Rival Sports Pod, covering the New York sports scene and behind the scenes, including the Buffalo Bills, New York Jets, New York Mets, and everything else in New York sports worth your precious time. And now here's Joe Pastor and Glenn Ferretti.
All right, what's going on, Glenn? How you doing today?
What's up, buddy? Pretty excited. Big show tonight.
It is a big show tonight. Pretty excited. Much better than last week when we couldn't get one in. If anyone was wondering, we had a stomach bug rip through my house. Toddler was sick on Friday, and then over the weekend, no one, was sick or anything. And I thought we made it. Then I woke up 2:30 in the morning, not feeling too good at all. Then it just basically wreaked havoc on my house. But yeah, everyone's doing much better now. Between that and the frigid cold we've been having, but things are definitely looking up.
That's always good. Yeah. Well, it's a good thing you're healthy tonight. I know we teased this out earlier, but we got Jeff Darlington joining the podcast from ESPN. You know, you've seen him in Get Up, Sports Center, on site at a lot of the football games. So pretty cool. We're going to talk a little Super Bowl, maybe get into some Bills and some Jets talk. We'll see where it goes from here. But pretty exciting for the podcast to get its kind of first big guest here.
Yes, it is. And we didn't really get a chance to talk about championship weekend. So without rehashing the games at this point, just some of the bigger things that happened. One thing that's jumping out on me was a lot of the talk about like the officiating, a lot of the complaining from Bengals fans in general. Just kind of made me just realize just how annoying they are. The Bengals and their fans, calling it Burrowhead. Even the mayor is going after Mahomes. Eli Apple is in a whole league of his own.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that Shady McCoy was putting him in his place was wonderful.
Yeah, it's like the team sometimes that just talks so much before the game, it usually never works out for them. It was, those guys, like you said, with the Burrowhead. Obviously, it was poster board material for the Chiefs. I mean, the minute the game ended, that's all they were talking about.
Yep.
And the mayor, who has zero impact on the game, certainly Burrow did not look like Patrick Mahomes' daddy during that game.
No, he did not. Because like being a Bills fan, how the Chiefs had constantly, been a thorn in our side in the playoffs. I kind of thought, oh well, maybe see Cincinnati, maybe see something new. But for whatever reason, it was not 1 ounce in me wanted to see the Bengals prevail in that game.
Yeah, it's like the team that's getting so hyped up for regular season and maybe postseason, not Super Bowl wins. You got to be careful. Like the Chiefs are kind of the throne holder until you're able to dethrone them and win the Super Bowl, not just get there. I know they got there last year, but the Chiefs obviously already got one under their belt, and they gave them some good stuff to play for, and they came out ready to go.
Yeah, and certainly as I know, you got to win the Super Bowl. You don't just want to be happy to be there. That's
Yeah.
for sure. The other thing people were talking about in the game that I brought up was the officiating,
Yeah.
and I I get it and I don't get it because like at first when I was watching the game, it was weird. Like, what do you mean they're replaying third down? But then when they showed the replay where the official is clearly blowing the whistle, he's waving his arms and running out the field. Just they couldn't see him, couldn't hear the whistle because Arrowhead's so loud. And then even after they showed that, it was like shaded, and then they do like a little bright circle around where the official was. It's like, how can you not understand why they redid the down after seeing that the play
Yeah.
was in fact blown dead?
Yeah, and I think that's something that obviously we can't really get on TV, was just how loud the place was. I mean, I would say maybe he could run in a little bit earlier from the timeout and try to really get their attention. But I'm sure you couldn't hear a thing on third down in that place, let alone a whistle. I mean, that's just, they made the right call. They were able to back it up with the video that the play should have been stopped. And I'm sure if the play went another way, the Bengals wouldn't be complaining as well either.
Yeah, but then the problem is like when something weird like that happens, I think that it leads to just everything the officials do afterwards you're going to question because of that one strange, peculiar situation. But like in no way were they favoring the Chiefs. Like there was the one play where I think it was in the first quarter maybe when Mahomes' shin was on the ground and then he
Yeah.
threw and completed a pass. Cincinnati challenged, and then the referees were like, "No, we're not gonna even go through the challenge." That was he was down with his shin on the ground, which makes me wonder when they say, "Oh, the officials huddled together and got it right." Did they really huddle together and get it right, or is like New York in their ear being like, "Hey guys, his shin really was down. Let's get this right." And I don't have a problem with that if that's the situation. I just wonder sometimes if that's what happens when they do get together.
Yeah, I think that is what's happening. They're probably getting the ruling from upstairs, which is great. I mean, it sped up the games. Those are obvious situations that they're overturning. They're not making coaches, especially in the playoffs, waste their challenges. They really should be doing this all year. The fact that they're only doing it in the playoffs is crazy. But yeah, teams are having to waste challenges the whole game. I mean, you saw the Chiefs at the end of that game where they challenged the first down spot on one of the runs that Mahomes had at the end of the game. That was close. I mean, that was, I don't know if I would say all the time, 100% of the time, that was a first down, that it got over that yard line. But that was huge on that third down that got them the first down on that play, that pretty much, sealed the game.
Yeah. Well, that and the little push in the back by
Yeah,
Asai. Um,
right.
what
Yeah, the
a
first down play,
mistake.
the first down play was a little earlier. Obviously, the
Yeah.
Mahomes run,
Yeah.
um, him running for pretty much the first time in that game, getting pushed. I mean, it was clearly a push in the back, just a terrible situation. You actually feel horrible for the guy. I mean, the thing that I appreciated most about that play was really after the game during the press conference. He had his teammate right by his side. He stood up there, answered every single question that was thrown his way, unless his teammate didn't like the questions that were coming his way. He stood up for him and said, "All right, next question. Like, we don't need that one."
Yeah.
But that's what you need. The guy had a phenomenal game
He
otherwise
did.
before there. So it's that great old adages from the coaches. It's like football's not won or lost by one game, and just terrible timing by that penalty. But
Yeah.
I don't think that the Bengals are down on him at all. Just a tough spot.
hmm Now, even without that penalty, the little next gen stats, the next gen said even without that, the Chiefs had a 90% win probability based on everything that was going on in that game. How they calculated, I don't know, but that's what the next gen machine says, and I think that's about right. I felt like the Chiefs were the better team. Um,
Well, and they still had more time to get some more yards too. It's not like they would have had to necessarily kick it. They could have thrown a quick out for a
mhm,
couple more yards and still get it closer. 15 yards obviously makes it a chip shot, but
yeah,
the guy was trying to make a play. His reasoning, which I thought was very valid, was when someone's going close to being out of bounds, if you can get their momentum going back the other way, the clock will continue to run
correct.
in that situation. So, I mean, he gave a very clear answer.
hmm
His understanding, was it right? Obviously not. I mean, the guy injured himself on the play, so
hmm
obviously he's playing full out. I mean, he knows one speed. Just a bad decision
Yeah.
at a terrible time. But yeah, I think you're right. I think the Chiefs probably still win that game anyway.
I think the only way I like that play better is if it was Eli Apple making the mistake and Eli Apple costing his team the game. I mean that I truly would have enjoyed and felt no remorse for him. That's for sure.
No, that guy and the guy that hung up the San Francisco 49ers shirt on Rocky really should be banished from football. I'm not sure the amount of crap talking that Eli Apple did. I mean, he's not the guy that backs it up. So it's just absolutely shocking that he's the voice of the Bengals defense when he doesn't back it up at all.
Yeah, no. When you look at all the different teams he's been on, what a bust he was as a draft pick. Yeah, it's like why are you talking?
I know. So yeah, so the Niners decorated Rocky.
Uh huh.
That clearly wasn't a good decision. I don't know if that had any impact on Brock Purdy getting hurt so early in the game,
hmm
but so far the Vikings have decorated Rocky. They lost, and now the Niners decided to, and that game was pretty much over immediately when Purdy got
hmm
hurt.
And
Tough to see, really, because such a great
yeah,
story.
it is. And I feel that initially I kind of was like, as I was watching the game, I was like, would it have even mattered if Brock Purdy didn't come out? But the game was 7-7. And could have been 7-0 because remember the throw to
Devonta
The
Smith.
Smith, yeah, was incomplete. But again,
Right.
that's good team playing and good coaching. You get to the line quick and don't give the other team a chance to challenge the ball. That's just part of the game.
But that
Um,
was interesting. See, I feel like when I was watching that, they didn't show the angle where he didn't catch the ball
mhm.
until after that play was stopped. And I know the game was like in Philly, but it's like the replay people have to have all the replays available as quick as
Yeah.
possible. I mean, if I'm the 49ers, like I'm furious that I didn't, and Shanahan talked about it after the game. He's like, yeah, we didn't see it until after they snapped it. And
Okay.
that's how they showed it on TV too. Like none of us saw it that he missed it until the next play was already run. It's like you got to get that quick, and they're challenging that. I mean, that's fourth down
And that's a good
on
point
that.
because you would think the guys that show those replays, right? Like they know what angle to show. Like you think you would, you know what I mean? Like you think they would know
Yeah.
that more than just like if it were you and I being like, oh, let me choose camera 3, you
Yeah.
know?
Well,
Um,
that was fourth down too, right? I mean, that's a turnover.
yeah.
It's not even we're kicking a field goal and it's
Hmm.
3-0. Like that's literally Niners ball going the other way. So that's a huge miss by either the replay or the 49ers staff by not having their own view on it.
And the other thing about that game is maybe it brought up the point for like a rule change to allow an extra roster spot so teams could carry 3 quarterbacks, especially if you're going to take quarterbacks out for like and I'm not saying you shouldn't, but someone's head
Right.
touches the ground. um they're going to pull them out of the game and look at them. I think that would keep the games more competitive. Now, I don't know how many more quarterbacks the San Francisco 49ers are possibly going to find anyway, but it's just one of those things where I wonder, hey, is this the best way to do it? If we are going to take all this special caution with the quarterback in particular, it's such an important position. Should we just maybe even require teams to dress 3 quarterbacks for every game?
No, it's a good point because it's people are saying, "Oh, what are the chances of like that happening?" But it's actually happened with, Tua and Teddy
Hmm.
Bridgewater down to Skylar Thompson. So it's like twice in the same year. This happened where teams really needed a third string quarterback to come in and
Yeah.
actually play real minutes. So with the new rules, I agree. It's like what's the harm and what's the big deal if you're dressing a third quarterback? You're probably not winning the game
No.
anyway. But that game was unwatchable. I mean, the guy was handing off with his left hand,
Yeah.
because he couldn't even throw the ball anymore.
Yeah. Lo and
I think
behold,
the fullback, yeah, the fullback was, I think, the emergency quarterback.
yeah, and lo and behold, he has a torn UCL, and he's in there, so he's going to be out quite some time. Um,
Yeah, so yeah, that's going to be interesting to see what happens. Those guys went from having three quarterbacks with Garoppolo and Trey Lance and Purdy to now kind of wondering what's happening because we know Garoppolo's gone.
mhm.
Shanahan's already said, they don't see any way he comes back to San Francisco. Trey Lance has an injury, and who knows with this torn UCL. I mean, you look at like baseball pitchers with Tommy John surgery, like that's a pretty serious
Yeah,
surgery he's having. I think someone said it was 14 weeks. PJ, actually, the guy that's friends with Jeff Darlington, said it's a 14-week injury. But I was like, yeah, you can have Tommy John, and you're not the right ever again.
yeah,
Like you don't throw the ball the same. Like a half step on an out pattern that you don't have that same strength in your arm. Like those are interceptions instead of completions.
it's true.
So, I mean, I think at the end of the day, we probably got the two best teams in the Super Bowl. When early picks for the year, I think the Eagles probably surprised somebody or
Yep.
some people. But nobody's shocked. I think that the Chiefs are in the Super Bowl. I mean, it could have been Chiefs, Bengals, Buffalo being favorites earlier, but we got a great matchup coming for Super Bowl
Yeah,
Sunday.
with Buffalo being the favorite, I saw something that it's been like years since the number one DVOA team has been in the Super Bowl. Like they tend to get knocked out for whatever reason.
Yeah, I wonder why that is.
I don't know. Everyone's gunning for you. I mean, I don't know. Buffalo's situation, I think, was a little different this year based on what they went through, but who knows? But yeah, it is an interesting thing. But there's two very high DVO teams in there this year, so that should be pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think and I don't know, I kind of understated a little bit on the other ones, but I almost think not even Josh Allen's play as much, but Von Miller's absence was so much bigger than Allen's play as well with the turnovers, just
Hmm.
because you look at like Kansas City, like they were all over Burrow immediately, and the Bills couldn't even get to the quarterback in that
Correct.
game.
Yeah.
So
And because, well, also too, you had Daquan Jones was out, and then you had what's his name, playing with the torn rotator cuff in the middle of the defensive line.
right,
So how you
but I
gonna
mean,
how
yeah,
you gonna get pressure up the middle? And then you look at what Oliver's production did after Von Miller went out, like you're saying. That is a huge loss for them. So you got to hope Von Miller gets back soon. Um,
yeah, but the Chiefs were able to really exploit it, and early and often, be able to sack Burrow and even just continue throughout the game. So their defense stepped up. I think, I don't know if we talked about this last time or either before the game, but there wasn't as much scoring, I think, as a lot of people thought were going to be in
mhm.
that game. You're thinking those two high powered offenses, but Mahomes definitely has, that ankle injury did show up a little bit. He wasn't limping around the field like he was the previous week, but you could definitely see that he's not 100%. And the receivers, I mean, what did they lose? Almost every receiver in that game. They
They
were
did.
down to,
They
yeah,
did.
they were down to Sky Moore, the rookie running back playing receiver,
No, I don't know
and
who practiced this week, but yeah, they're that's going to be a troubling situation for them, based on who can and can't play. I mean, people were even throwing OBJ out there on some of the shows. So they should the Chiefs sign OBJ to play? Like what?
that'd be crazy. I know. I'm surprised he never actually made his way back to playing this year.
Hmm.
I guess maybe the plane incident might have had an issue here.
Yeah, I imagine McDermott probably wouldn't like that very much, coming into Buffalo.
Okay, looks like Jeff's going to be on in 5 minutes, so he'll hop on. Yeah, but I mean, I thought for sure Odell Beckham was going to find his way on a
I
team,
know.
but I know the Cowboys were one of the teams he was looking at, and that didn't work out so well for them. And then who knows? Buffalo was under consideration, but I think the plate incident kind of ended his chances of coming back this year. But I also don't think he was 100% healthy yet either.
Yeah, that was kind of the feel you got from Jerry Jones with the comments, that he was making. And then also, I think OBJ made some comments that, like, well, he doesn't want to play in the regular season. He's going to save himself for the playoffs. And how many teams feel comfortable running him out there, for the first game in the playoffs?
I know. Do you feel like he becomes a giant again next year, possibly?
I,
I mean, talk about a need for
I
receiver.
know, I know. I, it's so hard to say, because it's also like, what do you have to pay him is the thing too. Like, how much money do you want to lock up in a guy with the ACL history?
Right. Yeah, it's a tough question, but when you're, staring down really no number one receiver,
Hmm.
um, you got some options to do that.
So
But, some team, I mean, it seems like the last few years, these receiver drafts have just been
they
unbelievable.
have.
With Garrett Wilson coming out this year, Olave, even the year before with Jefferson and Jamar Chase. Like, I'd almost rather build through the draft and get 4 years out of a guy in
Mhm.
a rookie contract than be giving away receiver money.
Well, it's cheaper. So about contracts and stuff. T. Higgins I guess, has talked to the Bengals, and I guess he wants an obscene amount of money, to the point where you're wondering if he's how much longer he's going to be on the team. Do they look to trade him, or something like that? Um,
Yeah, I wonder if he can hold down the number one spot on a team. What do you think?
Probably. And it depends on what team he's on. I mean, obviously, if the Giants, you're a number one, but what if you went to a team like a Jets, you know
Yeah, I think the Jets have their number
or the
one.
Jaguars, who again, they have Christian Kirk and all that money. So, is he number one over Diggs? I don't know. Maybe, probably not. I would. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe.
Diggs probably wouldn't
Uh,
be too happy about it.
yeah, I mean the way he's acting potentially, but yeah, it's interesting. I know Christian Kirk was adamant. I think this past week at some of these Super Bowl conversations about he wants some respect in the league. That guy had a big year, man.
He
He could
did.
be. He could be a top, 3 or 4 receiver in fantasy next year if Trevor Lawrence continues to make the steps that he's been making.
And good for him too, because a lot of people looked at that contract, myself included, and it was like, are the Jaguars insane? And like, what is this
Yeah.
going to do for the wide receiver market when you're, quote unquote, true number ones? like a T. Higgins and stuff,
Well,
perhaps.
all of those guys, right?
Yeah,
Zay
yeah,
Jones.
yeah. See,
I mean,
made
yeah, the
Zay Jones became relevant again.
yeah, ETN came back off his injury. I mean, those guys
Mhm,
literally like all paid dividends.
mhm.
Even the
Ingram,
guy that Ingram that the Giants ran
yeah,
out of town
yeah.
as well. So
They could. He probably would have been their best receiver.
yeah, I know. It looked like he is a receiver now.
Yeah,
He's slimmed down. They probably just don't want to pay him receiver money. So they're like, oh, you're a
you're a
tight end,
tight
buddy.
end. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I don't know. It'll be but it'll be good. I mean, those games were pretty phenomenal last weekend. At least the Chiefs Bengals game came down to the last minute. I'm hoping we get a Super Bowl that really delivers. On some big ending there
yeah,
because the last time the Chiefs Bucks played, I think it was 31-9. So
yeah.
we want a close one.
That's true. That Bucks defense was so good, though.
I know. And that's what I wanted to talk to Jeff about. I had a question about that when we talk about the Jets is, the Jets have a young core,
Hmm.
but we're kind of like a quarterback away from being like a playoff team. So do you go all in now, on a guy like Aaron Rodgers or Derek Carr, or do you kind of continue to work with Wilson, draft another quarterback potentially, and grow as a team? And that Bucks team, they had a sick team defensively, and they got Tom Brady in an instant Super Bowl.
Correct.
So I don't know. So see what his thoughts are. I know he covered Brady pretty closely down there in Florida.
Yeah, maybe he knows the spot to go to get the sand. Well, I mean, we have to ask him.
Yeah, right. It's got to be a pretty coveted spot right now. I imagine a lot of people are heading down there right now.
Maybe it's like roped off.
Yeah, probably. Um, but yeah, so yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens this weekend. We'll give our picks later in the episode. I think we'll hold you on a cliffhanger for that. But I think everyone's kind of excited to see, what Jalen Hurts can do, in his first big time Super
Hmm.
Bowl. Mahomes has been there before. There's some cool storylines with Andy Reid, playing against his, well, not really playing, obviously, but coaching against his old team.
Hmm.
Those were some pretty cool teams he had too that made it to the last Super Bowls.
Yeah, and
Uh,
Sirianni, he fired Sirianni as the wide receiver coach when he came into Kansas City.
oh, did he?
Yeah, yeah. So Sirianni was a holdover as the wide receiver coach, but I guess he said Reed did it in a classy way. He called him into the office. He explained to him how he wanted to bring his own guys in, blah blah blah. And I guess it could have been done over the phone, or he probably had someone else do it for him. So
That was one of the coolest Super Bowl teams, I think, too, though, with McNabb and T.O. coming off that nasty leg injury,
hmm.
back to playing that Super Bowl. There's always tons of respect for T.O. That guy looks like he can still play.
I know he looks like a Greek god.
I know. Out there running 40-yard dashes with some of the guys still
Hmm.
playing. I think he raced Tyreek Hill most recently too.
Yeah, I thought he ran like a 4.4 or something like that.
Yeah,
It was
wouldn't surprise
something
me.
that it was really fast this time. He wants to come back to the NFL. He was talking about that.
That would be incredible. I mean, come on.
Yeah, at his age.
Where do you think he would rank in the receivers if he came back and played right now? Can he still play?
I don't know if it's a matter of him being able to still play, but it's like how much could the human body take it at his age of after, getting a good 8 to 10 weeks of football and getting hit in. Because it's not like I know Rodgers is approaching 40, Brady was obviously 45. But they're not taking the same hits that a wide receiver is going to take.
Oh yeah. No, it's it's very different, but I think he'd probably be a guy who maybe plays like 20 snaps on offense. You give him a touchdown, maybe comes up with a cool celebration.
Yeah.
To was always good for that.
I wouldn't have been mad if the Bills brought him in. I mean, we brought in
I
John
know.
Brown and Cole Beasley offered out of semi-retirement.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, he's probably a better option than those guys. They should have had To at the Pro Bowl yesterday. Maybe he could have coached up some of those receivers in some flag football.
Did you watch any of that?
Very very little bit
Yeah.
tough. tough to watch right now.
I had a morbid curiosity in it. I don't know what it was. But yeah, it was kind of interesting. But at the same part, I'm like, I'm watching Kirk Cousins against Derek Carr right now, and this is the Pro Bowl. Now the skill players were great, obviously, but it's like
Yeah,
really that's
Huntley was the
that's
quarterback.
the yeah. I didn't see him play, but yeah, he was on the team. A backup was on the Pro Bowl, so that's rather telling. One cool thing was the wide receiver best catch competition.
Yeah, like the dunk contest.
Yeah, yeah. So Diggs was number two. He was in like a pool in a lounge chair in the pool. He caught a ball with each hand and then one with his legs. St. Brown running it. He was like running on those, those like lily pad balance things in the pool. He ran on that and then jumped into like a diving catch, and
Oh,
that
really?
was the winner.
I lost interest when they were doing the tic tac toe with the long snapper. I was
Yeah,
like, it was pretty funny. The one long snapper actually hit all of the marks because the kicker missed them all and the punter missed every one. So
okay,
the long snapper hit all the X's on the left side. I was like, I can't believe I just watched a long
that's
snapper challenge.
that's hilarious.
Yeah. I didn't even know we had the Pro Bowl long snappers, but apparently they get the nod for that as well.
Yeah. Well, the weird thing about the Pro Bowl is there was three Bills offensive linemen on the Pro Bowl, which Morris, maybe I could see that. There was a big difference when he was out, but like Roger Saffold was on there. He had a PFF grade of like a 40 or 51 or something like that. He's terrible. And then Deion Dawkins was on there, who was not bad, but like I'm not going to sit here and try to argue that he's the best in the league or the AFC even. So
Right. Well,
I
maybe there was a lot of opt outs.
yeah.
The Pro Bowl seems to get a
Yeah, there
bunch of
was.
opt outs.
Morris was the only one who made it for sure. And he kind of had a funny joke about it. Like when he's like, when they told him he was on the Pro Bowl, it's like, I thought they misspelled Milano. Um,
Oh, really?
yeah, who ended up making it. But yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Um, yeah, I mean, the game was actually not horrible for being just flag football because it looked like the guys actually gave effort.
Mm-hmm.
Which when they were playing the game, like they weren't even doing any tackling. But I was watching some of the old clips of some of the Pro Bowl, and man, I know you guys being a Bills fan, there is nothing better than the Sean Taylor clip of Brian Mormon on the fake punt,
Oh,
where
yeah.
he literally just destroys him in the Pro Bowl.
Yeah. I remember that. That's for many years, Brian Mormon was our best player during the drought. It was our punter.
Yeah, what was it called? We're in the tailgating where everyone used to hang out. I forget before the game, like Coffin Corner or
Yeah.
something like that. He had his own spot in the tailgating section. I think he used to go and like visit with the fans before the game. He didn't need much warm up. He was pretty much ready to go the whole time.
Yes, he was.
Yeah, but it was pretty cool. I was watching my boy Sauce Gardner mix it up a little bit in the dodgeball. He had his nice chain on. He had to take that off and
Okay.
get situated. But I
Yeah.
was disappointed when he got knocked out. Looked like a ball he should have handled being a defensive back, but kind of fumbled it there.
Yeah, they had some nice sunglasses on in the Pro Bowl as well. I'd like to look up like the cost of some of them. I bet you some of them are like thousands of dollars. What they were playing on, they looked like some pretty high end. They weren't like your regular Oakleys or something of that nature.
Yeah, no, those guys, yeah, they got enough coin to get some cool stuff, I'm sure. But yeah, it's probably the most Pro Bowl talk that's ever been done, especially
Yeah,
on this year's.
yeah, yeah. And it's like, what could they possibly do to make people care about the Pro Bowl? Like, remember when baseball tried to tie like home field advantage in the World Series based on whoever won the All Star game?
Yeah, and the American League was winning it literally every single year.
Yeah,
So the National League never got it. I think the Mets actually made the World Series the one year against Kansas City with a better record, and we wound up being the road team in that series.
they don't still do that, do they?
But I don't think
I don't
so.
think
If
they
they
do.
do, yeah, that would be horrible if they
Yeah.
do. I was always a big fan of like reseeding. I'm surprised they don't reseed teams based on the rankings. I think hockey actually does do that.
Okay.
But when you make the playoffs, it's like if you're the number one seed, if another team gets upset on the other side of the bracket, like you shouldn't pay the price for that. But
It's true.
I don't know. I don't think football will ever do that.
No.
I don't know. I think the only way they bring back the Pro Bowl is if guys are willing to really lay it on the line in there, which we know is not going to happen with all the money that's on the
Yeah,
on the
absolutely
table
not.
right now.
I think it's probably the best way to if you're going to do it. I think the best way to possibly do it is the flag football.
Yeah, just something to do. I'm sure the kids enjoy it.
Yeah.
Something to watch the week before the big game. You don't have to really think too much about it.
Although it was rather telling that Allen and Rogers still want nothing to do with it. They chose to go golfing, but like the meme said, is like, can't be mad at me. How many times have you called in sick to work to go golfing?
I know, and you're talking Pebble Beach too. I
Yeah.
mean, who's going to play flag football over
Mhm.
playing? Well, they play 3 rounds at Pebble. It's pretty sick. I think Rogers won it, right? Rogers won it.
Yeah, and Allen's group I thought was second, if I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, he's joining right, or he's going to join in a second.
How you guys doing?
Well.
Good.
Sorry about the delay, guys. Sorry, I know it's annoying.
Dude, we're not doing anything, so you're perfectly cool, man. We really
Nice.
appreciate you doing this.
We
Yeah, all
dragged
good.
on a discussion about the Pro Bowl while we were waiting. We were like, this is the longest discussion about the Pro Bowl ever.
Dude, did you guys watch it?
Bits and pieces.
I was morbidly curious a little bit, and then I
Yeah,
wanted
yeah,
to just
I
see
get
Diggs in the skills competition, but
What's the best way to do this? Should I turn it the other way?
No, you're cool. Yeah, you're cool right there.
It's good
Yeah,
like
it looks
this? Okay,
it looks good right there.
All right.
Yeah, so
good.
we'll just kick it off. We'll introduce you, and then we'll just get into it.
All right, cool. Sounds good, guys.
All right, we're joined by Jeff Darlington. What's going on, Jeff? We appreciate you hopping on.
Yeah, no problem at all, guys. Appreciate it. Looks like it's pretty clear what fan bases you both represent.
Yeah.
sure.
Solid big AFC East guys, apparently.
Yeah, we're up in upstate New York. So I was born in Long Island. So Jets fan, and Joe's born and raised here. So he's a Bills fan. So it's kind of why we started the rivals concept behind that. But
yeah, he was hazing all the Bills fans after the Jets beat us the first game, and there wasn't a whole lot going on from the Jets after that.
Yeah, I did the Bills game a few weeks ago, Bills Dolphins playoff game, and it was electric. It was awesome.
Yeah,
spent some time with the Bills Mafia. Smelled like street meat for 3 days afterwards.
Yeah, we saw that. You get to hang out with Pinto Ron and his ketchup and mustard.
I did. I met him. I didn't. I actually didn't go into the main parking lot much. We found another lot with some very hospitable fans that helped us out a bunch.
So you didn't take a shot out of the bowling ball?
They did in the background of one of my live shots. Right. The best way I wish I could have ingratiated myself a little better, but with the whole TV thing, I had to kind of limit my intake.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Had you ever been to Buffalo before?
Yeah. I've covered a bunch of games there. I've done. Honestly, I've covered the NFL now for, I guess, 17 years, and I covered the Dolphins for a chunk of those at the beginning before I started covering the whole league. So I would go up every year. So we'd look at the schedule right away and hope to God that the away game was in September rather than December.
Right. Yeah. What happened this year? They were trying to freeze the Dolphins out up there, I think, right? They weren't giving them no seat warmers or anything.
Well, I think that they felt bitter after the Bills played in Miami and dealt with that Miami home field advantage, which is just basically a sun beating down on the visiting sideline, but not the home sideline. A lot of bitter Buffalo fans.
Oh yeah,
over that one.
We weren't happy. I was like, maybe we shouldn't shovel their sideline when they come here, make them walk in 6 inches of snow. But I have a feeling that's not legal.
Yeah, well, you guys did pelt them with snowballs.
We did.
So I felt like you got them back in some capacity.
Yeah, and they justified every snowball they threw here. So I'm watching the game like that. You can't seriously think that that's acceptable during a game. And every Bills fan finds a reason to why it's cool to just while they're running slant patterns, throwing snowballs at them. That's perfectly cool.
Yeah, no. So it's okay if it's
all in
team.
good fun.
Yeah, it is good. Yeah, so we were interested what your kind of thoughts were, obviously, on, a couple questions on the Bills and Jets. Obviously, the Bills are kind of a favorite, going in and weren't able to get it done. So we got a lot of bias here on this podcasts,
Yeah.
and we'd be interested from an outsider perspective of what you thought of the Bills this year and kind of what happened to them.
I mean, I think that the Bills are a great team. To me, I always get a little apprehensive when week one comes, and this year was no different. And everybody's, Bills, look at them. First two quarters, blowing teams out, midseason form. They're going to win the Super Bowl. Like, no season ever works that way. And it's not necessarily a condemnation of the Bills. It just speaks to how difficult it is to not only get to the Super Bowl, but win it. And I think that you've got in the AFC with the Chiefs, the Bengals, and the Bills, you've got three teams that feel like they're all built for the postseason. So even if the Bills, which I do believe are a team built for the postseason, regardless of them bowing out this year, even if they are built for it, you're still up against two other teams who are as well. And I saw it last week with the Bengals coming into Arrowhead, all the talk about Burrowhead, and you think you're going in there, and I think sometimes there's two things that we need to be reminded of. One, Patrick Mahomes is otherworldly generational talent.
Mm-hmm.
That's not to say that Josh Allen isn't amazing, not to say Joe Burrow isn't amazing, but Patrick Mahomes deserves the respect that he gets. And I think that both those teams have proven they're capable of beating the Chiefs, but it just goes to show you that when you beat up on each other like that, getting to the Super Bowl is no easy task.
Yeah, so we've talked about that a bunch. So I see you got a question, but so you put Mahomes on a different stratosphere behind or ahead of Burrow and Allen, which I do as well. I put Burrow a higher up than Allen because a lot of the turnovers with Allen. I want to see like what's your value on Allen and like the turnovers. How much does it hurt him?
So I don't know that I still put Josh Allen above Burrow.
Okay.
By the way. And look, I subscribe to what Brandon Beane said too, the GM of the Bills. He took some shit for it, but he's right about winning on a rookie deal with a quarterback is very different than winning on a quarterback who is now getting paid. It's a different challenge. And to me, while I think of the world of Joe Burrow as well, it's the same thing that I'll say about him going into Arrowhead. Look, if he does it for 5 years the way that Mahomes has done it, and if he can become the threat that Josh Allen is at this point in his career as well, I will tell Joe Burrow that he deserves to be there. But for right now, I still think that Mahomes and Josh Allen have done more, even though Allen hasn't gotten the Super Bowl, have done more to prove their place in the league right now.
Yeah, that's a common conversation that we have is like, who are the elite quarterbacks? And of course, the Jets fans do not want to include Josh Allen in that. And I feel that like when I have that discussion with these guys, I feel like I'm talking to a flat earther and convincing them that the earth is round. Like that's really what I feel like when we have this conversation.
Well, it's like telling Bills fans you shouldn't throw snowballs at the opposing team.
You're probably right about that. Yeah.
I mean, Glenn, do you think that Josh Allen is not a, let's say, top 3 quarterback?
No, I think he's definitely number 3. I just have Mahomes like way further ahead than anyone because he's done it. Like he has won a Super Bowl. He's consistently, the Bills will point to we should have beat him, but the 13 seconds, like you still lost. Like I mean, at the end of the day, you lost. But they beat him in the regular season this year. So no, it's Josh.
Yeah, I would say that. All due respect, Joe, I don't mean to, I know I'm poking a bear. And Bills Mafia would have their way, but I kind of feel that way too when it comes to Josh, and I think Josh Allen is awesome, and I sometimes feel like Bills fans, for instance, will get so insulted by this. I'm saying he's number 2 in the NFL.
Yeah, that's fine.
I just think that Mahomes is definitely the better quarterback.
It's hard to argue that at this point, right? Because when you look at the results and things like that, I think the question is how close is Allen to Mahomes?
Great
at this point,
important question.
Is the offensive coaching there to get that? Because he has Andy Reid, we have a rookie OC and a defensive minded head coach. I think that some of the regression we saw with Allen was Dable going. I think Dable reined in that that gunslinger mentality. He got Josh to be like, okay, Josh, let's look over here. Let's hit Beasley over the middle. Let's not always chuck it,
Sure.
downfield. And I think that's part of it too. But yeah, it's hard for me to argue. Now, all Bills fans aren't going to agree with me. Like, some Bills fans are going to get mad and call me not a true fan because I say Mahomes is definitely the better quarterback right now.
Yeah, I think you're safe. I mean, look, dude, Patrick Mahomes in 5 years has now been to 3 Super Bowls and is on the brink of his second MVP. Like, that's that's not normal. That's
No.
not. And by the way, each year for the past 2, Patrick Mahomes has dealt with the questions himself. And this year, coming in without Tyreek Hill,
Yes.
um, and suddenly looking around and people saying, I mean, God, Bart Scott on our air was saying that the Chiefs weren't even going to make the playoffs after they traded Tyreek. It was like, and I get it. You got MVS, you got Mecole Hardman, you got kind of a hodgepodge, but you still have Mahomes, and you have at least one weapon in Travis Kelce, and as such, I think that we saw he's still capable of succeeding.
Well, yeah, and you look at that playoff game. Even last week, they were down to like Sky Moore playing receiver. One guy never heard of. I was like, oh, how are they going to win this game? Like, and Mahomes does what Mahomes does,
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I totally. I think that I hope that the rivalry between the Bills and the Chiefs is such that the same kind of mentality that is between Mahomes and Allen, which is very clear respect for each other, even if they do things a little bit differently too. So I love that we have 2 quarterbacks in the league right now in Josh Allen, and honestly in Joe Burrow too, who's also a different kind of quarterback than the 3 of them. They're 3 very different types of quarterbacks, despite the fact that they're the 3 best in the NFL.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. Well, that's kind of when we lead into a little bit of the Jets talk, is that quarterback is obviously a huge need for the Jets. And, you being down there, I know you covered Brady a ton, and, Tampa Bay just a couple years ago, went all in on Brady, with a bunch of young players, and they were able to make it happen in 1 year. So, like, what are your thoughts on what the Jets should do? Because it's kind of 50-50. Some people are like, hey, go get Rodgers at all costs. And some are like, let's just keep building a team for the future that's sustainable. And I'm in the go get Rodgers at all costs camp.
I think you go get Rodgers. Look, nobody in Tampa Bay regrets the last 2 years with Tom because of what they got in the first one. Nobody in LA regrets this year with Matt Stafford because of what they got last year.
Yep.
There are 2 definite mentalities. The Bills, for one, love to. They feel like they can build it the right way, and they hit on the quarterback, which is obviously imperative if you're going to do that. There is another way though, and if you have a team built for the moment, and you got a plug and play situation at quarterback, I say you go get the guy. Look, there's only so many people on the planet that can play quarterback that well, and if you don't get a guy on his rookie deal, you're going to wind up paying somebody near that money anyway.
Yep.
You go get Lamar Jackson right now, you're going to be giving him the same money you're giving Aaron Rodgers. Does Aaron come with his share of headaches? Yeah. I mean, he's a little bit eccentric, not just a little bit. There are going to be things there though. But look, Tom does too. Tom comes with things that aren't always easy as well. I am with you on that. If I'm the Jets, I'd say this is our time. Let's go get him.
Yeah, we were talking about that, and like these last couple of years of Brady has kind of allowed us to see a different side. Because I mean, we got to be honest, we're Jets and Bills fans. Like, Brady terrorized us for how many years? Like, I mean, we won like 1 or 2 games, so it's impossible to kind of appreciate what someone's doing when you're getting your butt kicked in every game. But it was kind of cool to see, kind of the different side of Tom Brady, and just, we're huge Gronk's from upstate New York, Buffalo here. So, we're big supporters of them. And obviously Gronk's crazy, and those 2 are like tied at the hip. So he must know something that Tom's a little more normal than people made him out to be in New England.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, one of the things that Tom was able to do, and the question that I would kind of carry over to whether Aaron can do this in New York, because there are 2 different types of people. Tom changed the culture in Tampa. He came in there and he set an immediate sort of vibe there that we are here to win a championship. I think Aaron would bring that when he walked through the door of the Jets facility because of his cachet and what he's done in the league. I don't know that he is as good of a, I do know he's not as good of a leader as Tom Brady is. He doesn't get guys, and we've seen it in Green Bay. And I'm not saying that Aaron Rodgers doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame, doesn't deserve all of the accolades. But I this year, even in the offseason, kind of hearing Aaron say, I think I could still win the MVP. You would. I'm not trying to rip a guy for one comment, but you would never hear never in a million years would you hear Tom Brady say that. You would never hear him say, I think I could still win the MVP.
Yeah.
There's one thing that he cares about winning, and that's the Super Bowl. And I think Aaron obviously cares about, he obviously cares about that. I just think that there is a different approach to the game, and one feels a little more individualistic than the other.
It's almost like being a Bills fan. We weren't just cheated out of the playoffs all those years because we had to play against Brady, but like we were cheated out of just like enjoying him, as a player. And I don't hate, and I never hated him as a person, but I hate him as the way you hate, the guy that beats you all the time. But like, his name comes up and it's, cheater, he did this,
Right.
that, and the other thing. And, but then it's like, do you see these little things you like about him? Like when he did the second retirement video, the little bit of like the self-deprecating humor. Well, I got my big retirement last time. You only get to do that once.
Right.
And that's kind of been the fun thing. But one thing about Brady that I've been wondering though, like as we've been talking about him, is that and he probably is the best because he won all the championships, but it's like, it seems that like, it's like an open and closed discussion. Okay, this guy's the best ever. Let's close the book. There's not a whole lot of talk about like, the cheating, the Spygate, the destroying evidence and stuff like that. And I'm just curious, like maybe why you think that we don't hear about that at this point.
For me personally, I think when he came back from 28-3 after Deflategate, for me that was like, okay, he's the best ever. That was when I felt like, I get the accusations, and for me, Deflategate, if we're just judging on football, if you want to put cheating into it in the same way that like you judge character for the Hall of Fame or something like that, you're not fine. But for me, deflating footballs is not going to. Would I appreciate like a different approach to that whole scandal? Yes. But do I think that Tom Brady deflating a football ultimately is the reason why he succeeded all those years? Not at all. Not even close. Does it tarnish his legacy? Yeah, I think it does. I mean, I think that it does, not entirely, but it is a paragraph in the bio. It belongs on the Wikipedia page.
And I think part of it too is like the by association, because there was the deflating the footballs, but like all the other cheating going on in the Patriots, like with like the Spygate and stuff, that wasn't Brady's fault. Like it wasn't Brady like recording the Rams practices before the Super Bowl. But he benefits it. And like I was saying, I don't think that disqualifies him either, because like, I'm not trying to start talking about baseball, but I still think Barry Bonds is probably the GOAT, in my opinion. So it's like, does that completely tarnish his legacy? In my eyes, no. I just thought it was curious that like no one really seems to want to talk about it.
Again, though, I think if you do bring it up, it's a pretty easy debate to win. If I'm judging it, like someone saying, okay, you've got these cheating scandals, and by the way, after the Deflategate instance, he was the maestro on the greatest comeback in NFL history, and then by the way, he left the team that everybody associated him with, where Bill Belichick was given a load of the credit, and he won a Super Bowl for a team that hadn't even sniffed the playoffs, and he did it in his first year there. So for me, it's like punch, counter punch. Like he did enough after. I mean, the guy had 3 Hall of Fame careers. So not only are we talking about resume and accolades, we're also talking about longevity to an unprecedented degree. That to me, you put it all together, it's hard for me to honestly. I don't even know who where do you go with it? Do you go to Joe Montana
Right.
as the guy that would even compete with him in that regard?
I would go Peyton Manning. But yeah.
Yeah, and from that regard, I think Tom blew Peyton out of
Okay.
the water career wise.
Okay.
Personally,
What I like about Peyton Manning is he took an organization that was like awful and turned it around. And again, little sour grapes here coming from a Bills fan. But like,
yeah. But Tom did that
but
in
but
Tom did
but
that
Drew
in
Bledsoe
Tampa.
had kind of taken him to the Super Bowl not too long ago. They weren't awful. Tom definitely made him
Right.
better. Like I said, he's an awesome player. I don't mean to sound like
And they had a great
yes, they
defense,
did.
and Tom definitely benefited
Yeah.
from that. But then again, like I think you can look at every player and you can make a case if you want to. Patrick Mahomes, you could sit there and say, well, he's got Andy Reid, um, uh, even Josh Allen. As much as you could say, look at what Brian Daboll is now doing with the Giants, and he had him. He's got Stephon. Like I think you can make the case if you want to for anybody and put him at a disadvantage. That's part of football, though. It's a team sport.
Yeah, I'm just glad. I'm glad we don't have to play him anymore. I'll tell you that's one thing for sure. And the other crazy thing is winning all those championships. And you look at Aaron Rodgers and like, oh, whatever, he's a bum. He only won one Super Bowl, or this guy only won two. When it used to be if you won two Super Bowls, you were like the best ever.
Right.
So
yeah, no, I mean, look at Montana, and that's what's crazy about Tom. 7 freaking Super Bowls, like that's insane. But to your point about Aaron is unbelievable. One of my favorite quarterbacks of all time, and I think deserves to be in the top 10 of all time, is Dan Marino. Never won a Super Bowl, but you can't watch Dan Marino and tell me that he is not among the greatest of all time. So do I think that you take the 7 Super Bowls and say that's what makes Tom Brady the greatest of all time? It's a hell of a case to be made, but there definitely is more to it than that.
Yeah, it's tough to argue against that one. I mean, I'm in the same boat with Montana. I was a quasi Niners fan growing up as well. So watching him and Jerry Rice, I wore number 80 in high school. Had the gloves, the gloves that didn't help you catch the ball back then. I think they made it worse, but yeah.
But by the way, to that point, it's like now that we have who I think most people consider the greatest of all time in Tom Brady, what happens next? Because you have, say, you have Michael Jordan, who everybody agrees, and then you've got the LeBron James conversation. Like, what does Patrick Mahomes need to do? Does he need to win 7 Super Bowls and then we can even have the conversation? Or if he wins 5, but continues at this exact same clip is that enough? So it's not only is it going to be interesting, is it interesting to have the debate that I think Tom
or
wins?
Is it something where it's like a Bill Russell situation where no one's going to top that, or like John Wooden, and no one's ever going to win all those championships again? It just might not be possible.
Yeah, it might not be. Although I interviewed Patrick for this last week for the Super Bowl, and he's not backing down from it. Like he doesn't shy away from it the way that you would think. He doesn't go, oh, gee golly gosh, Tom's great to get 7. He's kind of like sitting there. You can see it. He's doing the math in his head. He's like, I know how hard it will be to get to 7. I'm going to try to do it. I respect how hard it is, but I'm going to try. So I think that he definitely has the lifer mentality. Like Tom always talking about, I want to play till I'm 45. A lot of players don't necessarily say that. You got a lot of players say, I'm not interested in doing that. Mahomes has the mentality that he wants to play into his 40s at the very least.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, obviously, he comes from a great Met and Pat Mahomes as his father. But yeah, I mean, watching him, when he twisted his ankle in that first game, I mean, it looks like they had to like drag that guy to the locker room. So where you talk,
well, your guy Josh Allen is equally. He's got that mentality.
Yeah, he
too.
did that against the Jets when he still played. When we hurt his elbow,
he chucked it like 70 yards downfield. 2 plays
70
later.
yards.
Yeah,
literally with the injury, chucked it.
Yeah, and didn't.
Which was, by the way, the longest. I think Next Gen Stats had it at the longest air pass ever. I think since the stat was taken. So, with these guys are freaks. Now, for Josh, I just hope that he realizes stop taking some of those
Correct.
hits, because it reminds me a little bit of Cam Newton, where you watch Cam play early
Yeah.
on and he thought he was invincible. And as we know, as you get into your, you put some years on, all of a sudden those aches and pains, we pay for all of
Yeah.
them.
So we'll ask you this last Bills question before we talk a little bit about the Super Bowl. But we've kind of went back and forth on, like, do the Bills like misuse their running game, or is it, Josh is just the running back alongside of those guys? Like what?
I would have loved the way that the 49ers made the trade for Christian McCaffrey.
Mhm.
I would have loved to have seen the Bills made a move midseason. I'm not always like a big proponent of midseason trades, but to me, it felt like a pretty clear thing that was missing from the Bills offense. Like if they could have made a trade for Saquon, for instance, I think that would really take that team, take some of the onus off of Josh to not take some of those hits, but also add a dimension to the offense. We saw a different offense in the 49ers after McCaffrey. Even though he didn't have like huge numbers all the time, it changed that offense. And I think that could have been the case for the Bills too. So maybe that becomes a significant offseason
So
priority
maybe like
for them.
they got, sometimes I see like a lot of these mock things having the Bills going after Saquon Barkley, and most of the Bills fans I know are like, oh, that's never going to happen. So maybe it's a good
I
idea.
don't know. I mean, I don't know why. You got to think Saquon would look at it and say, if I'm not going to be with the Giants, the Bills to me makes sense for someone like that. Not going too deep into money and whether Brandon Bean would want to spend it, but Brandon is a smart enough guy to look at his roster and say, what are we missing? We're missing an elite running back.
Yeah.
So, I honestly, I could see it. It's not easy to pull the trigger on overpaying a running back these days. I totally get that when you feel like you can just go find one. But if you're in your window right now and you feel like you can win a Super Bowl in 2023, I should say, I think you go for
it's
it.
so hard to come out of the AFC. Like, can you imagine being Trevor Lawrence, where you could like conceivably have to play Allen, Burrow, and Mahomes? You have to beat all three of those guys in the playoffs.
But I'll take that a step further. When Trevor Lawrence comes into his own, as Josh did after year 2, was it year 2?
Yeah,
When Josh took the
second
next
year,
step? It was in his second year
when they
he
went to
sort of
the
started to.
AFC Championship game. Yeah.
Okay. And then just like Trevor kind of year 2 had his breakout, maybe not to that level, but I would turn that around and say Mahomes, Allen, and Burrow are now having to deal with another quarterback in Trevor
absolutely.
Lawrence, who's going to make his way into the mix. So, yeah, Trevor's going to have to deal with it, but so too are those other guys. So, I mean, the AFC is freaking stacked when it comes to quarterbacks.
Yeah, so we have an uphill battle in New York.
And by the way, what if say the Jets do get Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah.
And Brady's no longer in the NFC. Like, who's even say Sean Payton gets Russell Wilson back into it? Like, the AFC is absolutely stacked with quarterbacks right now.
Well, that might be a perfect lead into the Super Bowl conversation, because I'm not sure where you fall in this camp, but I was thinking with the Eagles is that they might be a product of a very weak NFC, advancing to the Super Bowl, having to play a team like whether it was Kansas City, Cincinnati, Buffalo, are just on a different echelon. I mean, you look at the teams they played throughout the season, the playoffs. Right. Brock Purdy got hurt immediately, so they weren't challenged in that game. So, like,
that's right. I'm not saying they got lucky, because it takes more than that, but they had a pretty nice path if you're picking one, right? You get the 1 seed.
They didn't have to.
I think that.
Yeah, they didn't have to rush Hurts back at all.
Path. Right. That's a great point. But hey, now you do have the challenge. You still have to beat the Chiefs, and on paper, I argue the Eagles have probably the advantage. If you look at the best passing offense of the season in the Chiefs against the best passing defense, so if those two things equal each other out at all, offset each other at all, on the other side, it feels like the Eagles' offense is better than a middle of the pack Chiefs defense. The Chiefs defense has definitely come on of late, and they played like monsters in the AFC Championship game. But I think that this Eagles team on paper has the advantage. But to your point, this is this is a task they have not faced in many weeks.
Yeah, the biggest thing that's concerning me, sorry, Joe, is obviously if Mahomes' ankle is, still hurt.
Right.
I mean, their pass rush has just been nasty. I know I sound like an Eagles supporter now, so it's kind of weird when you think about these games and talk through them. If they can get to Mahomes, and who knows you might know more what's going on with their receiving core, who's going to play in this game for Kansas City. But
no, they're beat up.
They're beat up.
They are beat up. So I have trouble ever betting against Mahomes. I really do. But I do think that when you look at these two teams, they're pretty even on paper. So then you start to look at health, and the Eagles, at the very least, can feel like they're probably catching the Chiefs at a good time.
Yeah, because that's why the game's interesting to me, because I'm a big elite quarterback guy, and it's you need one. So you have this team where the better team on paper overall, top to bottom, definitely the Eagles, but the Chiefs got the elite quarterback. What's going to come out, in the wash, particularly against that defensive line, which is one MVP bet that I like. The obvious MVPs for the Super Bowl are always the quarterbacks.
Right.
But what about Hassan Reddick? He's plus 4,000. So I see,
I think that's the only chance you have to
right?
Because
one way I see that the Eagles could win is not Jalen Hurts out dueling Patrick Mahomes. It's Hassan Reddick making Mahomes run for his life, or maybe Hargrave or something like that. But but for a plus 4,000, that's a path for victory.
So for me, I was talking to somebody about this yesterday. If you're looking at MVP bets, knowing that Mahomes and Hurts are, the odds are probably terrible, right? I would be looking. You got to look at sacks or interceptions. No voter is going to go just off pass rush. It can't just be Hurts. I would say it's got to be those numbers, and because they're going to be inclined, no matter what, even if it's not a duel, they're going to be inclined to give it to the quarterbacks. So unless you get an Eagles defensive back with 3 picks on Mahomes, that would be where I'm saying best pass defense in the NFL. Okay, so what kind of numbers could those guys put up? Or 4.5 sacks, something like that.
Ungodly number, yeah.
Some gaudy thing but that to me, if you can find the player who has the potential to put those numbers up, that to me would be the more favorable.
But you can't even make that bet in New York State. You can't bet MVPs, anything that's not decided by on-field play. You can't bet on. So it's like a moot. Really? It's like a moot point. Maybe I'd have to
You got to call Johnny.
Yes. Or drive to Pennsylvania if that even works, and make the bet on your phone across the border. I don't know if you could even do that, but yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So you heading down to the Super Bowl?
I am. I'm heading to Phoenix on Wednesday, and I'll be there for 4 days. I'm actually going to catch the Waste Management, the Phoenix Open as well.
Oh, that's pretty nice. I had
pretty cool.
We had an office out in Scottsdale, Phoenix area, so that was always a nice trip to head down. But I was never able to go to the Waste Management.
Yeah, I'm excited to check it out.
Are you golfing at all while you're down there?
I'm going to golf on Friday it's actually a par 3. Jay Feely's having an event. The former Clipper.
Yeah.
It's a par 3 event at a place called the Short Course. Apparently, it's a beautiful par 3. So
yeah,
get a little golf in too.
Yeah, everything's down there. Well, you got some nice weather where you're from, so you don't have to worry too much about the sun. I'm heading down to Fort Lauderdale in a couple weeks, so I'll be down. I'll be down there visiting PJ and going there for a little while. So it'll be a good time.
Love it. Great. Yeah, enjoy it, man.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we appreciate you hopping on. I do notice you got some Nintendo games behind you. What's your top game?
It's not. Tecmo. I don't even have Tecmo back there. It's because I must have let some friend borrow it when I was 8. I never got it back. Got not the original Zelda. It must have been the same thing. Adventures of Link. We got Tetris. We got the OG Mario Brothers. Got Commando.
Nice.
Spy Hunter. Got one of my, I think, most underrated games, Metroid. I was a big Metroid
good game.
fan.
There was many of those.
Jordan versus
That's
Bird.
legendary.
Yeah, legendary. And then my favorite of the Mario Dynasty, Super 3.
Of course.
Like, there was no better day than the day you got Super 3 and you got that raccoon tail and learned you could see Mario fly.
You like swat the enemies with your tail.
Yep.
Yeah, that was huge.
Totally.
Well, this was awesome, man. We really appreciate you you hopping out and talking some ball with us.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
It was fun.
All right, man. We'll see you.
Have a great trip.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate y'all. Good job. That was fun. Appreciate it.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to Rivals Sports Pod. Please make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. You can also email us at rivalsportspod@gmail.com with any topics, ideas, or questions.